In this video, you will hear the voices and stories of 5 Sugpiaq artists: June Pardue, Melissa Berns-Svoboda, Hannah Scholl, Trina Ivy, and Dehrich Chya. Their artistic expertise ranges from skin tanning and sewing, to weaving, to painting, to dancing, and so much more. The work they do as artists, community leaders, and culture bearers is vital. It was an honor to speak with them and learn from them. I hope you emerge from this video with a deeper sense of how cultural knowledge is transferred through the practice of art within the Sugpiaq community. In this first section, you will hear stories of how the artists started making art and how they continued that journey through learning from others or on their own. In the first story, Elder June Pardue speaks about how the Sugpiaq artistic tradition went dormant due to the direct effects of Russian colonialism in the 18th and 19th centuries. A resurgence of Sugpiaq arts of all kinds has occurred during June's lifetime, spearheaded by folks like June who have made learning and teaching art and culture their life's work.
Our people, the Sugpiaq people, had been defeated by the Russians when they came and invaded our territory and made slaves out of our people. You know, the women then were taken away from their homes, and women had to become the, sole providers of their families, the children. And how can one have time to tend to beautiful things like sewing, seal guts and seal furs and to apply the beautiful embroidery work that you could see on clothing in museums now. I got into the arts right after the 1964 earthquake and tidal wave. I was 12 years old. We had experienced, the disaster with losing our village, and not too long afterwards, we lost all our food in a fire. It wasn't long after that, my dad gathered the family and told us we needed to be making native arts and crafts, sent to Kodiak for sale, so that we could, so that we'd be able to buy butter and flour and sugar, the staples, because we were living off the land.
The first real project that I remember doing was basket weaving. Mm-hmm. And I was probably 11 or 12 years old. I had worked with a couple elders here in the village. The tribe had hired them through their ICWA program to come up to the school and work with the students and teach basket weaving. The elders that had taught me, they're all passed away now. Mara Androvich, Christine Ignatin, and Emily Bagoli were the 3 elders that sat with us in the library, and they brought in their grass, and they brought in some of the examples of their baskets, and they started teaching us how to weave. And I just remember the 3 old ladies talking there in Alutiiq, and I just remember Chris Ignatin. If I say, hey, what did I do here? It's not looking right, or I did something wrong, she'd take it all the way apart and back to where it looked funny. And so it was just like, you took all my work apart, but it was that type of teaching where you just have to do it right. You have to take it apart and do it right.
I started dancing in 2011. I had a 3-year-old at the time. I was a single mom, and it just captured my heart. And that's what gave me purpose to move forward with learning the language, researching the culture. I didn't want to just be babbling and singing about stuff that I didn't know anything about. I wanted to know what I was saying, and I couldn't know that without knowing the language. And so I started taking the language college classes and doing more research, and then getting more involved in the museum and working with more mentors and wanting to do things the right way. And so in 2011, that involvement in dance is what really spiraled me onto the positive lane of where I'm at now. So it was huge.
I do a lot of just self-taught using books and The internet, YouTube, you know. I do a lot of thrift store shopping, so I like to find some of those older vintage books too. And then, of course, a lot of it's just experimenting, like, oh, what would happen if I did this or this? And there's a lot of stuff that ends up in the garbage, but
really ever since I can remember, I've been involved with Sugpiaq dancing. And that's what with my family. My grandma started a dance group that was just for fun, dancing at her house. And then we started performing at the Alaska Native Heritage Center in Anchorage. And it just evolved from there.
In this section, the artists talk about what inspires them to create, and some share the project of which they are most proud.
I've learned through my journey in the last 7 years of healing to find inspiration through emotion and just exploring and learning how to process that, which is what I use my art for, as just that mental support, mental health, and keeping things balanced as best I can.
There's nothing like working outside and just smelling the earth, and when you're working with willows and alders, it just smells so wonderful. That in itself is an inspiration to make something. I feel really good inside, about our native values that we're taught to respect the land, to keep it clean, to keep the water clean. That's where all our food comes from. Keep the air clean, And when we're done with our canning solution, and we used it to can fish, to make fish leather, I can pour that back out onto the earth, knowing that it came from the earth and it's going back to the earth.
I was fortunate enough to go in 2013 to Helsinki, Finland, with the Alutiiq Museum under Dr. Sven Hawkinson and Master Sewer Susie Malutin. And we studied garments that are housed in Helsinki that came from the Kodiak area. From that project, the photographs that were taken have really inspired and have informed a lot of my art, because they are super heavy in like embroidery and detail work, which is something that it wasn't really known was part of our culture.
I do what I like to call kind of disconnecting, and I have a Spotify playlist that I call Create the Art, and it has like over 150 songs, and I just put my headphones in and press play, and I'm able to just disconnect from my physical world in a sense, and I just allow the spiritual aspect of it to just flow through me, and I connect with that, and I shut my brain off and just allow my body to do.
So there's the song that we danced. It's called Spet Una Pin, which means this is for you. A memorial song that Lauren Anderson wrote for Helen Semianov. She's a pretty well-known artist. Her family's from Afognak. And so Lauren wrote this song, and Perry Eaton carved a mask honoring her, and I was able to dance it. I was able to dance this mask. And the tradition is that you have this song, and the mask is made, and you dance the mask, and the mask is supposed to represent this person who's passed away. And after the dance is completed and the performance is done, you burn the mask, and so it takes all of that up, through smoke. The smoke travels upward, and it's supposed to reach the person who passed on. And so I was honored to be able to dance that mask for Helen. And we still perform the song today, but we don't use, obviously, the mask anymore, because it was burned when we did that performance in 2015. That's definitely the one that I am most honored and grateful that I've been a part of.
Many discussions I had with the artists revolved around the role of art within Sugpiaq communities and how art is medicine to heal past and present traumas. Those pieces of our conversations are featured here.
I asked the tribal council for space and just posted signs up, and said, dancing after school, 3:00, because a lot of the kids were saying, hey, we miss it. But I was like, I don't know how to teach it. I don't even know how to dance myself. So I said, well, let's post for dancing at 3:00 and let's come. And then you guys can teach me. Because there were a lot of the older kids that were part of that dance group previously who missed it and they already knew the dances and the songs. Kids just started showing up and we just started doing the songs that they knew over and over. And we worked on making regalia. We made drums. We worked on the songs. We worked on, oil lamps. We brought the community together, not only our community, but outside community, the Alutiiq community of Kodiak together, all together to celebrate dance of our region.
I think art allows, it allows the culture to breathe. Provides just like this open space to be explored.
For a time there, it was like nobody said I'm Sugpiaq. Or I'm Alutiiq. When I was growing up, nobody said those words. And I think that with the art taking place now, they can name it Sugpiaq art, and people have pride attached to that, and not just pride, but identity.
What I want, if nothing else, I want my kids to never have to hunger for their identity. Mm-hmm. I want them to know about their Native identity. They don't have to embrace it if they choose not to, but I want them to never have to be searching for that. That was something that I felt like really affected my youth in negative ways, is always feeling like I didn't have an identity. And so I want them to know, like, this is their identity. They can choose to go other ways if they want, but they don't have to be searching for something negative in order to feel whole.
We asked, what is this song about? And some of the elders, they're like, well, I don't know, that's not a real word, or I don't know what that word is. Like, maybe it's supposed to mean this, but this is how it's supposed to be said. So we worked with the elders through the Masters and Apprentices program to retranslate these songs into the Alutiiq language, specific for Old Harbor, because, maybe it was something that was taught that had a dialect from a North End or somewhere else that wasn't a dialect from Old Harbor. So we worked with our elders to rewrite these songs so that they could understand them when we were performing them, and so that our kids that were performing them understood what the song was about and what the actual words were. And in itself, that was like a language lesson. And then from there, we started writing songs, like thinking about ideas of, what would we like a song about? So we all go up to Big Creek, we all go fishing. So let's make a song about going fishing up Big Creek and catching dog salmon and humpies and filleting them and making tumuk and shooing flies away and eating it with seal oil. And, and then, worked on choreographing that and putting a beat to it and started making songs that way. And it became a language lesson for us and all the kids. And it was a lot of fun.
Creating art on a regular basis started as a mental health tool. And as I created pieces, my collection became larger personally here at home. And I started gifting items to express gratitude to those who make an impact in my life. And it wasn't until this quarantine that I realized, why do I do that? Like, literally my two mental health tools is creating and expressing my gratitude. Like, what I was like, no, that's just a thing I've always done. And I found out, no, my mom does that and people from home do that. And it was like, oh, my ancestors lived with intent and based it, in reverence and emotion and ultimately love of the connection they had to the world around them and those who were in it.
In this final section, the artists share their visions for the future and what they hope viewers will learn from their work.
I like when we have time to let people ask questions, and so we can teach them about who we are and how we're still around. Like, the Alutiiq people aren't just gone. Native people aren't gone. They don't, just live in museums. Our people are still here, and I think that's important for people to understand.
Evolving from an artist who is only focused on selling artwork to an artist who has educated themselves enough to go in and be able to teach and do talks. Like, I do these open table talks where I put a bunch of Alutiiq items on a table. Most of them are just mine, like pieces so that people can touch them and pick them up. And I do this with all ages. And like getting to the point in my personal education to like the research that I've done and as an artist to be able to be like, okay, ask me anything. I think would probably be my like greatest accomplishment to date, like getting to that point of feeling comfortable enough to literally do that. Okay, ask me anything and be able to answer not just like the technical questions, but answer the tough questions and the racist questions and how to handle those with tact and still and not like, you know, shut down people, but just like facilitate conversations about important issues and important concepts that people are generally afraid to ask natives, even in our own community. I'd say that that's my greatest accomplishment.
Or maybe it's just me, like I have this expectation that I need to do stuff that helps perpetuate things, but I also don't want to conform to the idea that I'm a native artist having to create native things. And I struggle with that. To me, conforming in that sense is a death of creativity, and never really understand the potential that is lost when sticking with something in that regard for me. Like I've, you know, it's been expected that I create native items exclusively, and I don't stick to it. And, you know, I just kind of create what speaks to me that's authentically me.
I'm so glad that I have grandchildren who I help to raise as Sugpiaq, and for them to be just immersed in everything that I do. I'm glad I got started when I was young, that I didn't have to be in emotional turmoil over who I am, because I know who I am. And for us, this is just a way of life. It's not just art. It's not just about art. It's just a way of life for us around here.
I hope that they learn that, one, a respect for the Alutiiq culture, and two, that it's a living culture. It's alive and it's vibrant. And as with, you know, any living things, it continues to change to its environment and adapts to its environment. And a lot of the things that were traditionally used by our ancestors, those were the things that they had available to them. And now we've got new things available to us that we may incorporate into our arts. And just because they're modern things, it doesn't mean that it's not Alutiiq art. It's just, it's an alive art.
It helped me so much to find my culture that I think that it can help other people to find their cultures too. Like, I think that that's a powerful thing that's not explored enough. And so I really like to inspire people to, you know, do art, do their thing, share culture, share art, and like, let's try and build this positive community up.
Kuyana, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to learn about Sugpiaq art. And I give thanks to June, Melissa, Hannah, Trina, and Dehrich for sharing their stories and expertise.